Mark Reeves is the TSSAA. Well, he is the president, the director, he's the executive, he's everything. Mark, I know you keep a lot of hats on, but what's the most important thing going on with the TSSAA right now?
Well, we got a lot of things that are going on right now, Paul. I know we're excited about the fact that we have sanctioned girls flag football. It's an emerging sport, 130 plus teams that are participating this spring. So, creating a lot of new opportunities. Boys and girls lacrosse is now underneath the TSSAA umbrella for the first time this spring, and that's gotten off to a great start. And then we're celebrating our 100-year anniversary on April 11th. April 11th, 2025, it'll be 100 years since the Constitution and bylaws were first signed at a teachers' convention in 1925. So a lot of history running through the organization right now, and just kind of been neat to look back on some of that. And then certainly, the hot topic is the transfer rules. We've been engaged in discussions with the membership about the transfer rules, and our legislative council just made a very significant change to our transfer rules last week, and to try to free up some opportunities for students to transfer for significant academic, mental health, social, emotional reasons, while maintaining, we hope, some control from the school standpoint. It looks like we've been able to hold off the legislature, at least right now, in passing kind of a one-time transfer for any reason. So, but that's something that's certainly at the front and center with the membership.
Any changes in rules that you like, or maybe we need to make a change or two? Anything out there that's kind of buzzing?
Again, from the eligibility standpoint, I think there was an appetite for the membership to find reasons for legitimate transfers that didn't already have a pathway. For example, if there was a legitimate academic reason and the other school was to be able to verify that there's no nefarious things going on, there's no athletic or disciplinary issues, then we ought to find a pathway for those kids to be eligible. And the council did that. They figured that out, and it's going to create some challenges just from an administrative standpoint at the local level, at our level. But it makes a lot of sense for kids, which is what really we ought to be doing in the first place.
There's been so much talking about things in Washington. Anything that might be flowing back down here to high school sports?
I think those conversations are related just from a standpoint that school choice is a big part of a national platform, but also at the state level. And with that being said, I think what the council did a couple weeks ago was in line with what you're seeing across the country of school choice and opportunities, and not finding ways to remove restrictions for families to decide, where students want to go to school, while also what we're trying to do is thread this needle of making sure that we keep athletics in its proper perspective, making sure that the academic mission of a school is more important than what happens on the athletic fields, and to maintain a competitive balance. And those are really our three fundamental principles of our bylaws. And so how can we accommodate the changing landscape of education, academic freedom, while maintaining those three primary objectives of the organization? And I think the council did a really good job with that.
How many more years do you have on the contract for here at Middle Tennessee State University to play girls and boys basketball state championships?
This is a contract year. In other words, this is the last year, and that generally coincides with classification periods. This is the last year of a classification cycle, and so we'll be looking at contracts for all events going into next year. So, this is the contract year. We've already settled on the fall sports locations for the next coming year. So now we're gonna be taking on those winter sports. After this tournament's over, we'll be looking at that and spring sports as well.
I frankly like where we are here at MTSU. I think it's the best place in the state to watch basketball, personally.
Yeah, it's a fantastic venue. You can't argue with the atmosphere here. I mean, it's phenomenal. I don't know time frame wise. It's been at least 30 years. Should probably know that verbatim, but yeah, it's a great venue. They do a great job. There'd be nothing negative about coming back here.
We're visiting with Mark Reeves. He is the president of TSSAA, director, the chairman, the boss, if you will, folks. But the bottom line to what he does is basically you let everybody else do the job. You just make sure they're doing the job.
Well, I have a phenomenal staff. I really do. And there's no way that I would say yes to this role if we didn't have the people that I get to go to work with every day.
Well, you were with one of them when you were hanging around here. You know,
I've been here a little bit, so I've worked with a lot of those co-workers for quite some time, and I put this staff up against any staff in the country, state associations. I mean, it's just amazing what kind of work output they're able to generate with the staff we got. You know, we've got 16 full-time employees, 2 part-time, with nearly 1,000 member schools. You know,
and the payroll that runs what?
Yeah, payroll. Well, 16. Are you talking about like dollar-wise?
Oh yeah.
Oh, gosh, it's not enough. It's not enough for what they do. But I would say this. You know, you take Florida. For example, I'm not knocking Florida. They do great work in Florida. It's a different organization, different needs, but you know, they have 800 and some odd schools. That we have over almost 1,000. I think they've got 26 employees or something like that. We've got 18. But we try to be as efficient as we can, get the most bang for the buck.
Isn't insurance one of the biggest issues that you folks have to deal with for the schools across the state?
Yeah, it's a huge line item. You know, our budget is we're about $4.8 million budget, and about $1 million of that budget. So you know, nearly 20%, or actually more than 20% of that comes from insurance premiums that we pay. You know, $600,000 of that is just for a catastrophic insurance policy, which is like a supplemental medical policy for student athletes that they have, and then all the liability insurance that you have to have. It's almost $1 million. It's north of $900,000. You know, for that insurance every year. So. Yeah, it's a big ticket item, but it's something that's a great benefit for the membership to have that supplemental coverage.
As executive director, and I haven't asked you this question, but give a little history on how you got here. I mean, you played basketball, baseball, softball, something along the way, and that's why you had a passion, I know, for high school athletics.
Yeah, you know, my roots are deep in education. I was a teacher and a coach. You know, graduated from UT Martin in '97 and became a head wrestling coach and science teacher at Springfield High School. But you know, grew up. I played golf. I played football. I wrestled. I played baseball all in high school. Played soccer all my life growing up until I got to high school. Played tennis in the youth league. I love sports, and got into administration about 6-7 years into my teaching career, and ended up just stumbling on a job opportunity at TSSAA where the description kind of met some of the things that I had some background in, and applied for it and was fortunate enough to be hired in 2008, and you know, just haven't looked back. Certainly missed my time in the classroom. My wife she's a principal at a elementary school there in Robertson County, and so her family, they're all lifelong educators, teachers and coaches, and administrators. So roots run deep, and certainly enjoyed it.
Mark Reeves, he's the executive director of the TSSAA. I've given him a lot of titles earlier, but that's his job, the overseer of everything that takes place. What keeps you up at night? Is it football injuries? Is it somebody getting thrown out of a ball game? What does keep you up?
Well, I would say this. Nothing keeps me up at night. I've always been able to sleep and put it to bed, but there aren't many waking hours that I have anymore where I'm not thinking about what's our next move for transfer rules. That's kind of been the dominant piece right now, and has been for some time. But you know, other than that, quite frankly, I think about, okay, what does the organization look like 5 years from now, and how do we need to prepare for it? You know, what staff are we going to need to have in place? You know, those kind of things. It's more of an organizational mindset of where do we need to go, and what's the priority for the association, for the membership in every department that we have. You know, so spend a lot of time thinking about it, but it's fun to think about.
But you are focused on people playing by the rules, whether it be transfers or whether it happens to be somebody being ugly to a referee.
Yeah, I mean, there's challenges. That's administration. I tell my wife, we kind of joke, well, she's in administration too. I said, maybe someday we'll look back and we'll have a little job that I don't know, where we're greeting people at the YMCA or whatever. We're not making people mad with our decisions, but that's part of it. We have a membership that has an agreed upon set of rules, and when we say that, that's not necessarily to say that everybody agrees with what those rules should be, but there's a process and with any kind of governance, and sometimes there's conflict that comes with that. What I would say is that 95% of the time, I would say our school, our members, our administrators, our coaches, whatever, they're going to work with us. They might not ever agree with every decision we make. I think some of the outside pressures that we have, just from society itself, there's so much conflict that bleeds over into the culture of education, and that's a struggle. That's hard. But it's not just us walking through that. Those teachers, coaches, administrators, they're the ones in the trenches they're living that every day as well. I think what we try to do is create a culture of support, that we're all in this together. I hope that's what we're doing. That's certainly what the vision is. It's what I feel like our staff does a really good job doing. I certainly hope that I'm doing that. It is something that we're all in together. We're all here to try to make opportunities better for kids.
You have a TSSAA Hall of Fame. Have you prepared for the new group that are going to be recognized, or do you have a couple of names that you want to share with us?
Well, I tell you what, that is an amazing, it's an amazing endeavor. Heather Carter is the one that coordinates all of that, and we've got we've got 8 inductees this year. I hate to mention, because I'll leave somebody out, but we've got a number of phenomenal inductees for this year's Hall of Fame that we'll celebrate here.
Coaches, referees, players.
Well, it's coaches, administrators, ref, and officials are the 3 categories. We've never delved into players in our state. That becomes so broad, and but coaches, administrators, we have recipients from all 3 categories, and that's always a great event. It's amazing to kind of look back on your history, and there's so many former members that will come back for that each year. It's kind of like the really cool class reunion.
Yeah, and in some cases you do it after they passed away, and get the recognition there as well. Let me ask just a couple of other things. Bowling, is that a big sport across the state?
Oh yeah. Bowling is bowling's been around a little while. It's probably about 20 years now, maybe a little bit. Maybe right about 20 years, maybe a little bit more.
They don't get a lot of publicity.
They don't, but if you've never been to the bowling state championships, everybody ought to go. It's an amazing event, atmosphere, and it's pretty unique. We do it at the Smyrna Bowling Center, and there aren't any bowling venues that are really built for spectators or large crowds, but people figure it out there. You'll see periscopes that people make to be able to see over the back of everybody. We used to have a lot of step ladders that would make it in, so that's the only event that we've got. We've got to have signage to say you can't bring a step ladder in the venue. But it's fantastic, and just provides that opportunity.
What other sports don't get much recognition?
Well, I mean, I would think you would probably say this is true for any state association and NCAA. You get more eyeballs probably on football and basketball, baseball, softball, track and field maybe than any others. But the wrestling, the bowling, the lacrosse, I think girls' flag's fixing to have a lot of eyes on it as you start to see that momentum around the country.
Tell me about that. Well, you jumped on it. Go.
Yep. So the girls' flag, when you look across the country, the NFL has made a very intentional, concerted effort to really promote the game in Tennessee and around the country. By establishing and putting some seed money into states that run pilot programs. We started working with the Titans about 3 years ago with that very concept, where they had some pilot money for coaching supplements, uniforms, etc., and a couple of school systems that jumped on that. And so now they kind of turned it loose, and that's become sanctioned for everybody. And just the turnout, you're hearing cases of schools that have said, we got 90 kids that have come up to try out, for girls flag football. And so, just an opportunity. I would say this too, shout out Emily, again, staff that we have is just amazing. Emily Crowell, one of our assistant directors, she was selected to serve on the National Federation of High School Associations Flag Football Rules Committee as a Southeastern State representative. So this past summer, she and 7 others from across the country wrote the inaugural rule book that would be standardized across the country for flag football. That was one of the challenges going into adopting it as a sanctioned sport. There was no standard set of rules that anybody had adopted across the country. It's just kind of a hodgepodge. And so the National Federation, seeing all the interest that we had across the country, said, hey, we need to write rules for it. And Emily's been instrumental in really the surge of that in Tennessee, and they selected her. And so that's pretty neat.
I would be remiss if I didn't ask you the state of where is it next year and the next 5 years, the next 10 years we're going to be playing high school football state championships. Do you foresee us out here on the new Titan football field?
Well, they've expressed interest. They've certainly, we have a great relationship with the Titans. You know, they have been a partner for us for a number of years and sponsor our Mr. Football Awards, do such a phenomenal job, and a lot of other outreach that they do with individual programs. They're just phenomenal.
They're a good partner for you.
They're great.
They do the recognition of
Absolutely.
Mr. and Miss football, basketball, and
Yep.
so forth.
They do a great job, and so they have expressed interest. You know, they're 2 years out from having their construction of their stadium complete, best case scenario. But we just signed an extension with Chattanooga for the next two years, which again our contracts are all going to run 2 years out basically. And Chattanooga's been a phenomenal host.
It was a great place.
Oh, they do. It is fantastic. But it'll be interesting. That 2 years comes if the Titans are still interested. I know that would be certainly an interesting option to consider.
I broadcast a game in 1978 at Commonwealth Stadium in Lexington, Kentucky, now Kroger Field, and I got to tell you, it was great. But the number of people there looked like it was just a handful. When you have a big, I kind of like Chattanooga myself, to tell you the truth. But I know people want to come and see.
Oh yeah,
bigger.
Absolutely. That's the challenge. I guess maybe you would say the negative when you go to a big stadium isn't doesn't matter how big your crowd is. It's going to look small when you get in a stadium like that. But I think ultimately our schools, our kids, what do they want? What experience are we trying to create for them? But there's always pluses and minuses with every venue. But Chattanooga was fantastic. Cookeville, fantastic. That smaller setting. When you do get that big crowd, that's pretty special.
Let me move forward for just a couple of more moments. Mark Reeves, he's the executive director of the TSSAA. There is a shortage, it seems to be everywhere, getting referees, whether it be football, basketball, whatever it happens to be. You've got to recruit these people somewhere along the way. As a matter of fact, one of our young men here in West Tennessee was out talking to some kids last week on Wendy's, trying to get them interested in baseball and softball.
Well, it's certainly a challenge, but I tell you what, our numbers were pretty good in terms of new officials that we had last year. I think you can almost say maybe the bigger challenge and maybe the more important piece moving forward is to really focus on retention. If you can get them in the door, how can you keep them, and can you keep them? Because that's sometimes the hard part. And also realize things are a little bit different. I'm not saying this is a bad thing, but the younger generation now, you start having a family, you start having kids. A lot of times we lose them during that stretch where they spend that time at home with a small family and raising kids, and so we understand that. But how can you catch them on the backside of that when things slow down a bit? So that's going to be a challenge. It's a challenge for Tennessee. It's a challenge for everybody. It's certainly more challenging just from a societal standpoint. People are so confrontational now. But it needs to be a focus for the organization. And, man, it's a great opportunity for a young person, especially for some part-time income. My goodness, it's a great way to...
They're getting paid $100 a game, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, depending on the sport. And, yeah, you're looking at quite possibly making $100 and 2 or 3 hours in some cases. And, where can you make that kind of money as a young person, college student especially? So a lot of opportunity there.
I haven't asked this question of anybody at TSSAA, but how do you get to be out on a basketball court or a football field? How did those referees get there?
So, I've asked the question to literally probably hundreds of officials over the years, is how did you get into it? And almost without fail, somebody asked them to that was already affiliated or already an official. Somebody physically say, hey, Paul, hey, why don't you come to this local meeting? Have you ever thought about officiating? But in order to actually do it, there's a registration process. They register through our organization. There's a background check required by state law. And once they're registered, then you're connecting them with the assigning officer for whatever sport, whatever part of the state. And then they get them going.
How do you get to be a referee on this court? How do you become calling a state basketball tournament or football game?
Lots of practice. lots of practice. And now, I would say this: there's a faster track to move up the ranks probably than there was years ago, just simply because the demand is so high. And a lot of times our young guys and gals that get in it, if they're really good, in many cases they're getting plucked into the college ranks. And so, which is great. I mean, there's obviously a lot more money in that, but it's simply being seen by their supervisors of officials, and they make recommendations to our office. Our office has eyes on them, whether it's film that they watch or they're actually physically going to see them.
I've got to give a shout out to the Northwest Football Officials Association and basketball. I'll start first off with Keith Wish in basketball. He's done a terrific job of being where he needs to be. And not only that, our association in West Tennessee, it's pretty doggone good.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, Keith's great. And I tell you what, I knew less. I say this a lot. I knew less about that world than any other part of what entailed in my job description when I first came to TSSAA. I was never an official except for the occasional flag football game at UT Martin when somebody didn't show up. But I have enjoyed getting to know those men and women who serve in those supervisor roles as much as anything I've ever done. Those people like Keith they have a heart for kids. They have a heart for the game. And that fraternity is very close knit. The friendships that they cultivate, and which is I think anybody that's been in it for a while will tell you is the best part of officiating, is the friendships that they're able to cultivate with each other, and just being a part of that world, being let into that world, has been just a huge joy for me.
And I'll be quick about this, but there's David Hawks. There's so many football officials out there. Jerry Carpenter, as you and I know, and then several basketball. I have a love for basketball officials too. But those guys are exactly what you said a moment ago, and they are eventually having to step down because old physical age sometimes it's challenging to get up and down the field. And you have Roy Deal, I think he's one of the very best in the state when it comes to basketball. I mean, there's a tremendous group out there, and some of them don't want to work a big game. Others, they strive to be able to be there, show their best officiating.
Yeah, absolutely. And those supervisors, signers, in education, you notice great teachers, and some of those names that you just mentioned are great teachers. There's an art to that. There's an art to be able to constructively help and assist folks get better in whatever role they may be in, and certainly that's a key of being a effective leader of some of those associations.
I didn't give you a chance to talk a little bit more about UT Martin before we close, but what was your takeaway from the University of Tennessee at Martin?
Can't say enough good things about my time at UTM. That was I would say that the Lord led me there. I thought from the time I was a little kid I was going to be a Tennessee volunteer, and that's where I went my freshman year. And it was a little too big for me, but I had some friends that were at UT Martin, so I'd gone to visit them on the weekends, and just felt like I felt home every time I just rolled into campus. And,
but you grew up where?
I grew up in Middle Tennessee, in Springfield, just about 30 miles north of Nashville. My wife is from South Fulton, though, there, and that's why I say the Lord led me there. I did not know her, obviously, before I went to UTM. We had never crossed paths, but, when I got there, I felt at home. Just the people that I was able to meet and the experiences that I had, the teachers, the faculty, the fraternity, there was I just can't say enough good things. And of course, I did meet Jill while I was there my last year at UTM, and that was the best part about it.
You waited too long, almost.
I know. We almost missed each other. She's a couple of years younger than me. But yeah, we almost missed each other.
What'd you major in?
Yeah.
What
I major in? Well, I started out pre-physical therapy. That's when I came to Martin, and I actually was in all the prerequisite courses. At that time, you only had to have 60 hours of credit in order to apply for PT school. And so when I got to my 60th hour, my grades were really good. I mean, I felt like I had a good chance to get in, but I wasn't quite sure that's what I wanted to do, and I literally remember this. I was in the parking lot of the movie theater there in Martin, Tennessee, and I just had a thought, like, I think I want to be a teacher. I think I want to coach. And I can't remember what might have prompted that, but I remember that moment like it was yesterday. And the next day I went to my advisor and said, okay, what would it take if I wanted to teach science and maybe coach wrestling? And my transcript, I wasn't going to lose any hours. I wasn't putting myself behind, and so I changed my major right after that. Loved my education professors. I could go on and on. Dr. Robbie Kendall Melton, I'll never forget her. I mean, she's the best. I cannot say enough good words about what she taught me going into the classroom. She was our special education teacher. Met 3 hours on a Thursday night once a week, and I can't say enough good things about it. David Belote, the late Brian Brown. I was so fortunate to be able to work with both those guys as a recreational supervisor there for Campus Rec. So many great experiences that I can take away from the UT Martin.
You look like a guy that could be in PT. We've got some terrific people that are on the sidelines every night. Dynamics, physical therapy, and fitness. They're some of our best in West Tennessee.
Yep.
And across, as a matter of fact, they've stretched across many.
Well, and another, I guess, avenue or thing that I've stumbled into, in this role is working with those who are in that sports medicine profession, athletic trainers, physical therapists that serve as schools, and that has been a joy as well. I was actually at the state legislature a couple days ago, and they were having a day on the Hill, and there was Tennessee Athletic Trainers Society was up there, and I look up and there's a bunch of faces that I have recognized and developed close relationships over the many years working with our Sports Medicine Advisory Committee. And again, people who are in that world, particularly those who are dedicated to serving schools, they have a heart for kids, they have a heart for education, they have a heart for young people, and you connect with those folks. You find who they are and you connect with them quickly.
I'll give you the last word. High school sports means what to the community?
Man, that's big. I would say that it's probably one of, if not the greatest tool for having kids build the best version of themselves. When you think about those teachers, coaches, administrators, and what they're trying to do every day, they're trying to win ball games. That's their goal, but their purpose is much greater, the ones who are doing it right, and that's really to mold young people through these experiences of trying to pursue excellence on the court, in the classroom, on the field, where wrestling mat, on the bowling alley, wherever it may be, is using those experiences to really try to teach kids how to handle adversity, teach kids how to work, be disciplined, be respectful. It's just that platform, that great tool to try to get it done.
Mark Reeves, the TSSAA Executive Director, spending some time listing what his thoughts and perhaps the future of high school sports. Thanks so much, Mark. It's always really nice to visit with you. But more importantly, I know your heart is really in what you do.
Well, I appreciate that, Paul. I appreciate what you do and the world of our media that really bring attention to what these kids and these programs and these schools are doing. I can't thank you enough for what you do, too.
You've been listening to 30 Minutes, a community affairs program on Thunderbolt Radio. You can listen to this broadcast and others anytime by visiting thunderboltradio.com and following the Thunderbolt Radio and Digital YouTube page. Thanks for listening.